Pierre, you reported last night on SportsCenter that the Leafs are closing in on a deal with Auston Matthews, and you talked about 6 years, and I believe you talked about a range of 12 to 12.5 million. Am I right? Did I get you right on SportsCenter on that?
Well, I did not say they're closing in on an agreement. I have no idea how long this is going to take to get done because I know that there's still a lot of work to be done. Okay, they had dinner last week. Al Dubas had dinner with Jed Moldover and Jeff Jackson, the two representatives for Auston Matthews, and that was really the first face-to-face in quite a while. But I think all sides, as Kyle Dubas relayed in his media gathering, all sides came out of that meeting feeling pretty good about where things were and where things might go. But, Gord, I'm not ready to say they're closing in. I mean, I think what I reported last night is I think that the idea of a 6-year term is gaining more and more traction, even though the eight-year deal is still on the table as well. As far as numbers, I think that's the part where the two sides still have to get brass tacks. I mean, I think both sides have to meet again and continue to hammer out what would be the AAV if they do 6 years. And from there, this is just pure speculation on my part. But, yeah, I've been thinking anywhere from 11.5 to 12, maybe 12.5 would make sense on 6 years. But, again, I don't believe both sides have gotten there yet.
What does the 6 years kind of signify? Is it like he just gets another crack, Pierre, or just, I don't know, just...
Well, yeah, and again...
And a follow-up is, like, where does Marner kind of lead into this? Do you think that he's going to look at this and say, I'm equal to him, like Taze and Kane, or where do you think the follow-up on that is?
Well, first of all, one of the big differences between those negotiations, both Taze and Kane, I'm glad you brought that up, and Crosby and Malkin, is that the same agency did both players for the same team, right? So CAA did Crosby and Malkin at the same time, and CAA did Kane and Taze at the same time. In this particular case, you have different agencies representing Marner and Matthews, and that's important to point out because it makes it a lot more difficult to sort of have parallel negotiations and parallel thought, to be honest. So you got Darren Ferris on one side and obviously Jackson and Moldover on the other. So because of that, I don't really see the same symmetry here. But the reason why 6 years might work, and again, maybe they'll end up doing the max, but I know that they've discussed 6 years, and the reason there's some merit to it, whether you go 5 or 6 years, is that it brings down the AAV, number one. So from a team perspective, you understand, the allure. And obviously from the player perspective, you're right. It allows you to jump into that third contract a little quicker, which, by the way, is what Crosby and Malkin and Kane and Taze did out of entry level. They did 5-year deals, and then they got to the third contract quicker. So I think there's merits to it for both sides. What I don't think anyone should read into it, if he doesn't end up doing 8 years, I'm talking about Auston Matthews here, is that it has anything to do with, any kind of allegiance or lack of allegiance to the Leafs. I mean, no one mentioned that when Sidney Crosby did a 5-year deal out of entry level, that it seemed weird. Just business. It makes sense. And, at the end of the day, if he decides to go like Connor McDavid in 8 years, that'll make sense too, depending on the number. But I know they've talked about that a lot. I think for Marner, this is the game plan all along. We've talked about it ad nauseum, but the ability to go after Auston Matthews has been the game plan from the get-go for the Marner camp because they will argue, I think, that, hey, we shouldn't be that much behind what that number you guys now have for Auston Matthews. So let's go. So I think it gives a concrete target for the Marner camp afterwards to start to tackle.
TSN Hockey Insider Pierre LeBrun is with us from San Jose, California.
Pierre, when you're there at the All-Star game and you're talking about contracts or Auston Matthews or Mitch Marner, has there ever been a sense that one of these players, like they want to do the Sidney Crosby thing where it's, I want to kind of take a haircut or like to make the team better, or is it just the player wants to make the most money and capitalize? There's never any talk about, I want to do the right thing for the team. Do you ever hear that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. I think they probably feel like they can accomplish both. I don't know how realistic that is.
It's not realistic. It's either break the bank or do what's best for the team, which I think the modern-day player doesn't really think about.
I think that's what I was going to get at. I think that the younger next wave of player, and frankly, if I was advising them, I'd probably advise the same thing. I think they're taking care of themselves, right? I mean, And there's no better example, quite frankly, than what's happened with Connor McDavid in Edmonton. I mean, he took a serious. I know people are going to laugh because he makes $12.5 million, but
No, he did.
I think Connor McDavid should make $20 million a year. I've said this before, and I got in trouble for it, but I think he's vastly underpaid because he's that good. He's the one that sells seats everywhere, including in his market. But he took less. I mean, originally the first agreed upon number. I know it's been leaked out. We talked about it. They first agreed to a deal that was $13.25 million a year, and it then got cut down to 12.5. And you can discuss why exactly that happened, but it did. And I think part of it was Connor McDavid liked the idea of let's get more talent around me and let's go win. Well, it hasn't happened. Now, it may still happen, but the idea that he left money on the table so that they could fill out the roster with more talent has simply not happened. And I suspect that that's had an impact on other young stars deciding their future.